I've had a lot of people ask me, Michele, when do I know I'm over narcissistic abuse? Like, is there any way for me to be able to tell? So I thought I'd put together a video where I talk about 12 signs that you're still unbalanced as a result of narcissistic abuse. And by the way, if you have been struggling to overcome narcissistic abuse for a while and you feel like you're not able to kind of get that balance back after the relationships are over, make sure you check out my upcoming workshop, which is about rebalancing after narcissistic abuse. And there's also an optional free breathwork session that I'm going to be attaching to that workshop. So it's all about clearing out the nervous system and, getting trauma out of the body as well. Okay, so what are some things you can look for that can help you to know if you still need to give attention to your healing journey? I'm going to go over 12 things, and I just want to say really quick before I jump into those 12 things, a lot of people wind up on this healing journey a little bit longer than they would like because they start to heal, and I say this a lot in the Thrivers School of Transformation, but they start to heal, they taste what the healing feels like, but what they forget to realize is that those are new behaviors, those are new patterns, new thought processes. And if they don't do them long enough, your brain will go back to the default thoughts, the default emotional states, the default beliefs as well. So think of each belief kind of like a muscle, right? You might start working that muscle and you'll actually see some definition and you'll start to see a change. But if you stop, what happens with a muscle? That definition gets quickly lost, right? And your body will go back to how it was before you started exercising. It's the same thing with healing from narcissistic abuse. We have to develop patterns, thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that are different, right? Because we can't do the same thing over and over and expect something different. So we have to do things differently, but then we have to do them differently long enough that they become in our subconscious. When that happens, now our subconscious is going to be helping us on the healing journey instead of making you feel like you're at war with yourself, right? And if you're at war with yourself, what that looks like is you start to heal, you start to put things into practice, you start to see change, you start to see things differently, but then somewhere along the line you get sabotaged and you're back to square one again. You start healing, you start seeing change, you're sabotaged, you're back to square one again. When that happens, when you're at war with yourself, it's because the healing that you're doing is healing that's on a conscious level. It's healing that has to do with changing external things in your life, but you're not penetrating your subconscious. Okay, so that's why that happens. So it's not that your subconscious is your enemy. It's just that if there are old beliefs there, the job of the subconscious is to keep those beliefs your reality. So when it pulls you back, it's really just trying to keep that your reality. So the hard work in healing is shifting those beliefs, okay, because it does take time. So I hope that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is give yourself time, be patient with yourself, and when you slip back, don't think all is lost. Don't think that you can't heal. It's just a matter of doing whatever you were doing, right, for that period of time. It's finding out why you're slipping back into the old belief and how to continue strengthening the new one, which, by the way, is what we do every week in the Thrivers School of Transformation. That's what we talk about. We're trying to do the work not only on a conscious level, on an external level, but on a subconscious level as well. So be sure to check that out if you're struggling in this. Okay, so here are the 12 signs that you want to look for. You want to look at and kind of give yourself a wellness check, so to speak. Okay, the first one is you are repeating patterns. So these could be patterns that show up only in relationships, right? We might wind up getting so many different areas of our life together. But if we're continually attracting the same kinds of relationships and we're having the same outcomes, it's because there are certain beliefs that are pulling us back, that aren't allowing us to continue to move forward on the healing journey. Other patterns that we might be repeating are our thought patterns. If we are still having a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of critical thoughts, right? Part of healing narcissistic abuse is changing a critical inner dialogue, a cruel inner dialogue, and turning it into a compassionate inner dialogue. We can't heal if we're still treating ourselves the way the toxic person treated us. Number 2 is ruminating. If you find yourself going up in your head all the time, whether it's to figure out what happened about the past or to worry about the future, and you're up in your head and you're just constantly going over these worrying thoughts, then what has happened is, if you did start to calm the mind and calm your nervous system, it's just a sign that you've slipped back. That thinking is a sign that you've slipped back into the default of rumination, because narcissistic abuse teaches you to ruminate. So a way you can gauge how you're doing is how much of the present you're living in. How often are you just in the moment? Number 3 is you can't meditate. Okay, and I'm just talking about 5 to 10 minutes of just mindful meditation. If your mind can't do that, then your amygdala is still overactive and it's affecting your thinking ability. Okay, so mindful meditation, the whole point is to start helping you to give space between you and your thoughts so that your thoughts don't have so much power, but it also helps to shrink your amygdala and help your hippocampus be where it needs to be, or the size that it needs to be. And when I say shrink your amygdala, it's because just like a muscle, if I use one muscle 24/7 all the time, that one muscle is going to be way bigger than my other muscles. Well, it's the same thing when we're in constant fight or flight, when we're in high states of anxiety, when we're in amygdala hijackings, when our nervous system is hijacked. That means our amygdala is being used so much, it grows. It actually grows in size. And our hippocampus, which is where our short-term memory is, winds up shrinking. So our thinking ability gets affected. So if this is your case, I would encourage you to start with 1 minute of meditation. 1 minute. And then if you're able to do that, attach a positive feeling to it. If you can't do 10 minutes, don't do 10 minutes. Because that's like lifting weights that are too heavy and you're just so determined. No, you're supposed to go lighter, right? It's the same thing with meditation. You want to start training your brain to have these skills, but sometimes we have to go lighter. If we do 1 minute of meditation and we attach a positive feeling to it, now we're showing our subconscious mind that this is safe, that this is good for us, that we can do it. It's going to want to help us. But if we do 10 minutes and then we get frustrated with ourselves, our subconscious strengthens the belief, I can't do this. And therefore you will stay stuck, not being able to do that. You're unable to live mindfully present. Okay, this kind of goes hand in hand with rumination, but think about, when you're with your family, are you able to just enjoy the moment that you're with them? If you're doing something, reading a book, taking a walk, are you enjoying the moment that you're living in? Not up in your head, but being in your body. Number 5 is if you still feel overly reactive, okay? If your trauma response can still get ignited by other people's behavior, then your trauma response is actually showing you where your wounds still are. Now, some people tend to try to explain their triggers to other people, their family members, their friends, in an effort thinking, well, if they know my trigger, then they won't do that, therefore I won't be triggered. That's true, and if you have friends that are compassionate and willing to help you with that, that's a wonderful thing. However, that is not going to heal your wounds, which means if somebody else does that same behavior, you are still going to get triggered. So part of healing is healing whatever's coming up that is causing you to feel triggered. My advice would be to view your triggers as opportunities, as like emotional x-rays, okay? It's exposing what still needs attention. Instead of getting upset and angry about them, we can almost thank our body and be like, thank you for I mean, not while you're in the trigger, because that's not going to happen, but afterward you can be like, thank you for helping me to know what I need to work on. That may sound silly. Some of you are like, okay, Michele, you've lost it. But the truth is that if we treat ourselves like that on the healing journey, that calms our limbic network and our body feels more comfortable with us as we're going through the process. If we get angry at ourselves and frustrated at our triggers, it becomes a lot harder to work through them. So how we view them really, really can help. You're overloaded with negative thoughts. Okay, if you were to kind of be a spy in your mind today for the next week, track how many thoughts you have that are positive and how many are negative. If you find yourself still with a lot of negative thoughts, then that's evidence that the past is still affecting you. Okay, because everything about narcissistic abuse is negative and critical. So healing involves changing those thought patterns. If you feel disconnected from your feelings, your thoughts, life, or even yourself, okay, if you don't feel connected to yourself, then that's another symptom that the trauma and the narcissistic abuse is still affecting you, because narcissistic abuse is all about disconnection, right? You are disconnected from that person. You're chasing the connection that they give intermittently, but on top of it, in order to chase connection from them, you literally have to disconnect from yourself. You deny yourself your feelings, your thoughts, your passions in an effort to get connection. So if you're still feeling that, if you're still feeling disconnected, then that's another way it shows up as a symptom that it's still affecting your life. 8, you struggle to make decisions. Okay, again, it goes back to the amygdala. When you've been living in your emotional brain for a long time, and the part of your brain that people in narcissistic abuse are living in is actually their alarm system, their limbic network, right? You're so often in your limbic network that you are not in your prefrontal cortex. You're not in the areas of your brain that control executive functioning, thinking, decision making. So, like a muscle, if we're not in those areas of our brain, they get weak. And that's kind of tied to the last point too, in the sense that something that makes it hard to make decisions is not just the prefrontal cortex and the unbalance in the brain, but it's on top of it, it's a disconnection from self. If you're disconnected from yourself, you don't trust yourself. So you wind up asking other people how to make your decisions because you're disconnected from self. 9 is living on autopilot. Your days seem to be the same, right? You're not really creating your life. You're almost feeling like this is my life and I have no control over it. And a lot of what's happening is just a repetition of the past. That's when you're on autopilot. When you're not on autopilot, you are creating your life. You're designing it how you want it, not accepting it as if you are powerless. Number 10 is a tendency to isolate. Okay, this is hard because being around people was so unsafe. Being with people that you should have felt safe with, because it's one thing to feel unsafe if you are around people that are, let's say I'm in a prison, right? I'm walking through a prison and they're all around me. It's kind of normal to not feel safe, right? But in the case of narcissistic abuse, you were made to not feel safe around people that were supposed to have your back. People that were supposed to be there for you no matter what. People that it's normal to get love and support from, like parents or a significant other. So to feel that same unsafety with those people makes it really hard to feel safe around other people. However, as you begin to heal, part of healing is regaining a sense of safety inside, regaining a sense of safety in your surroundings. So it's something that helps us to gauge our healing journey. 11 is feeling empty inside, okay? And again, this is very much tied to disconnection. So part of narcissistic abuse is you are basically living to make somebody else happy. You are revolving around another person. There is no you, right? So sometimes after narcissistic abuse, a person may leave a relationship and all they feel is empty because they've never learned how to live as themselves. So it's something that we need to learn to get that connection back and to start learning so that you can feel full from the inside. And in that sense, you won't attract another narcissist in your life. And number 12, the last symptom I'm going to mention is physical and or emotional numbness, okay, where you just don't feel. You don't feel anything. So these are some things that you can look for. If you want to know where you're at, put these 12 things on a list and then rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. So here's the thing. We don't want to take these 12 things and look at it like all or nothing. I would encourage you to, again, if you've been on this journey for a little while, I would encourage you to make 2 lists. One from a year ago and one from right now. Because we tend to not give ourselves enough credit on the healing journey. So list those 12 things, and on a scale of 1 to 10, where were you last year? Were you at a 10 with being unable to be present, and now you're at a 5? That's something to celebrate, okay? If you were at a 9 with overloaded with negative thoughts, and now you're at a 4, again, those are things you want to celebrate. And I can't stress, I probably drive some of the members of the School of Transformation crazy because I'm always telling them to celebrate. Okay, I can't stress how important celebrating is. Okay, I'm just going to really quickly explain why this is so important. First of all, our subconscious learns through, if you're in the school, you know exactly what I'm going to say. It learns through repetition plus emotion. In other words, it's not enough to repeat a new behavior. We have to attach a positive emotion so that our brain pays attention to it. The other reason it's important to celebrate is because the healing journey through narcissistic abuse or childhood trauma can feel so long. It can feel like it's taking longer than it should. Okay? And so when we're not exactly where we want to be, we can start viewing it in a negative way, which can feed a belief like, I can't, it's too hard, you know, my case is just harder than normal, I'll never heal, I'll never be over this. Every time we get upset at ourselves on the healing journey and we think this way, we're fueling a belief that's going to try to keep sabotaging us because it's a belief that we're still keeping alive. Whereas if we celebrate one step forward, even just one small step, a 9 to an 8, we celebrate, we are training our brain to feel positive on the journey, to notice our progress, and to be happy about it. And when we do that, it's going to help us to move faster. Okay? So I hope this video helps you to know kind of where you're at and how you can gauge it, as well as some tips on how you can continue to move forward. And if you feel like you can benefit from weekly support, make sure you check out the Thriver School of Transformation. I'll leave the link here.